Now, under the garb of protesting for the cause of the Palestinians, there are some organizations in India who are perpetuating a radical Islamist agenda. They are brainwashing Muslims in the country, lying to them that the right-wing groups in the country are stoking hate against Muslims. One such example of this is a clarion call that has been made by an organization by the name of Solidarity Movement. It is located in Kochi and has organized rallies in 9 cities in India today simultaneously on Children's Day under the garb of protesting for the cause of the Palestinians. They are spreading hate against Hindus. They are comparing Hindutva to Zionism. They refuse to accept that Hamas is a terrorist organization. It looks like the Kerala government under Pinarayi Vijayan has been giving tacit support to such protests and organizations, and so far there has been no action taken against the Solidarity Youth Movement, that is an offshoot of Jamaat-e-Islami, which gave platform to a Hamas terrorist eulogizing the October 7 terrorist attack on the Jews in Israel. Let's start off this conversation. On the telecast with me is Savio Rodriguez. Savio, there are simultaneous rallies and protest marches that have been organized in 9 cities in our country. The epicenter of these rallies is Kochi. This organization by the name of Solidarity Movement is suspicious, it's dubious. The founders and the orchestrators and the developers of this movement have their antecedents to anti-India and more importantly anti-Hindu and anti-Hindutva propagation that they have been accused of doing. So, is the pro-Palestinian protest being used to perpetuate Hindu hatred under the garb of talking about how this is Islamophobia and how Hindutva is acting as a form of Zionism and how this is an attack on Muslims in our country?
That Israel and Palestine are in a conflict for a very long time. But Israel has not waged war with Palestine. Israel has waged war with Hamas, and Hamas is a terror organization. Certain sections of the communities in India that do not work for the interest of India but work for radical Islamists in other parts of the world are trying to create a situation in India that Muslims are in danger and are looking at putting the blame on Hindus and Hindu organizations as being perpetrators of violence against Muslims, and that Muslims should be living in fear, or Muslims should rise up against atrocities that are happening to the Muslim community in India. So let me define what the Muslim community in India is all about. The Indian Muslim is a Muslim that works for the interest of India, works for Bharat Mata, and works to ensure that all communities in India live in peace. But the radical Islamist that is in India, he is or she is not working in the interest of India. They are working in the interest of the Islamic radical propaganda that they are looking at focusing in India, and they are looking at destabilizing the Indian government to creating a fear psychosis around the fact that Hindus are oppressing the minorities, in particular the Muslim minority. The so-called minority tag attached to the Muslims itself needs to be questioned. Over 20 crore population cannot be termed as a minority in India. That's a huge population. That's the size of a country in Europe in some cases. So this bandwagon of minority, this atrocities towards the minority, that is what certain members in the Muslim community that are radicalized Islamists are trying to use to create instability in the Muslim community in India, to make them live in fear, but they have to rise up above it. Because if you see what radical Islam has done to most Islamic countries, such as Jordan, such as Syria, such as Libya, such as Iraq, you will realize that radical Islam has destroyed many Muslim countries more than they have any other countries which has a majority population of a different religion.
Right.
So Kerala is one such typical as far as the state is concerned in India, because the left is always aligned to Islamic radical thoughts, and they've always been working together even outside of India. So giving prominence to Hamas is actually sponsoring or propagating terror sympathetic thoughts, and that needs to be avoided in a place like India, particularly because Kerala has seen the emergence of Popular Front of India, and Popular Front of India is now banned in India, primarily because they were terror sympathizers and in actuality working to a terror intent.
Yeah.
And therefore Kerala needs to be careful. Hindus and Muslims and Christians in Kerala need to be careful. Why would the church come out against the Muslim community in Kerala, especially the radical Islamists? They came out against radical Islamists because they are afraid. The reality of the situation in Kerala is such that Christians are afraid of Islamic radicalism that's happening in Kerala. And therefore the church, that is normally seen to be against the BJP government, has come out in strong, against what is happening as far as Islamic radicalism is concerned. They're afraid. They were the ones who raised the issue of love jihad.
Right.
Therefore, Kerala needs to be, the Muslims in Kerala, the right-thinking Muslims must learn to differentiate between Islamic radicalism and Islam. There's a huge difference between both.
Okay. Gautam, then, the obvious question, is the Kerala government and the Chief Minister doing something about this, or are they tacitly in support of these pro-Muslim rallies or pro-Palestinian rallies? Like I said, and when the government bodies are coming out and saying that what's wrong in having a pro-Palestinian rally, they are not delving deep into the subject, the genesis of these protests that are being organized and orchestrated by the individuals that are involved in them.
Well, Megha, one good thing is that the Gaza war is heading towards its end. It's not the Ukraine war that will go on and on and on. So fuel for this fire is dying out. Hezbollah has been contained. The Syrians have been told to mind their own business. The Jordanians are keeping relatively quiet. The OIC has not been able to isolate Israel. Now, as far as your question, the Kerala government is very much behind this protest. The person who has organized it, two of them, are known supporters of Vijayan, and they are trying to export their brand of radical Islam to the rest of India. It is very unlikely to work. The Muslim of India, as Savio has pointed out, is a patriotic Muslim. He knows the state of the average Muslim in the 57 Muslim countries, the freedoms they enjoy, or rather the lack of freedom, the very right-wing governments, censorship. So you can't get a single Muslim to leave India except for these radicals being bred and exported from Kerala to ISIS and the like. So the chances of this spreading all over are remote. The Arabs, the sensible ones, have isolated Hamas for what they are, a terrorist organization that they want no part of. They want good relations with Israel, and to entangle the Palestinians with the Hamas is a mistake. In fact, it's a mistake that the Palestinians have made by electing the Hamas. And now what have you got? You've got the entire Hamas political leadership cowering in Doha, and all the militants being killed hand over fist by the Israelis in the Gaza Strip. They will be smashed out of existence. And that's all that they have achieved by this atrocity that they began on the 7th of last month. Now, there is no question of this being allowed. The government of India is cracking down quite hard on these proposed demonstrations, and Kerala is solely to blame.
Okay.
Kerala government is solely to blame.
Okay.
And it is a problem that they are a popularly elected government, but in a sense, so was the Hamas. Mega.
Rahul, then when the Kerala government gives legitimacy to these to this Islamist rallies and protests that are being organized pan-India, and when the Indian government itself has not designated Hamas as a terrorist organization, it is this particular point is being used as a leverage to hold these rallies, because right now in the dictionary of all the people in the country and those particularly orchestrating and organizing these rallies go about giving this argument that Hamas in the books of the Indian Constitution and the legality is in fact a resistance movement. It is not a terrorist organization.
That's true. India has not designated Hamas as a terrorist organization, but our PM Modi ji and a global citizen like Sri Shashi Tharoor categorically went on record to say that what happened on October 7th was a terrorist attack. There are many nuances. India has always stood with our Palestinian brothers and sisters, and India is balancing Palestine and Israel now, and that is the right position for India to go ahead. In the clash of civilization, we should emerge as the consensus between civilization, and India is rightly doing so. Even 3 to 4 days ago too, India voted against the Israeli expansion of settlement, and that's a very right position that India has taken. Israel has always respected us, not only because of our vote, but because of our ethical standpoint, Mahatma Gandhi, and the dharmic courage we have. So we should always have that position. At the same point of time, we should not confuse Palestine with Hamas. We should not confuse the innocent Palestinian with Hamas. Hamas is a radical Islamist organization who carried out a terrorist attack on October 7th, and we should have the courage to call it as a terrorist attack. Yes, there is a technicality involved saying that Indian government has still not designated. Israel government is actively pushing with their ambassador saying that India should also designate Hamas as a terrorist organization. Maybe Indian government is taking a much more nuanced and balanced stand. That's the reason why they are not doing so. But please remember, killing 1,400 people, innocent civilians, butchering them, raping them, cannot be called a resistance movement, right? 1,400 innocent people being killed, 200 people being taken hostage. In Kerala, one issue is that the left wing has a sort of appeasement. 27% of Kerala has Muslim population. So they are seeing that Muslim vote bank or the hardliner vote bank among our Muslim community and playing to that gallery. I think it is not right for our left wing to do that, a section of Congress to do that. We should, beyond appeasement or beyond politics, we should come to a position that we all agree with the Palestinian cause and we empathize with them. But at the same point of time, Hamas is not their representative. I know Fatah or the PA, Palestinian Authority, can be a representative, but never Hamas, because Hamas is an extremist organization who carried out attacks on innocent people, and they have killed innocent civilians. So this can be a classical definition of what constitutes a terrorist attack. And even in India in UN too use the word terrorism, and we are empathizing with it. Yes, that technicality is still there. Maybe Indian government wants to nuance and balance it, but at the same point of time, attack on innocence everywhere is an attack on humanity itself. That's a stand, that's an ethical stand we should take. Our left wing, because of so many other considerations, because of sounding fashionable, sounding progressive, they are missing the whole point of innocent Jews or innocent Israelis being killed.
Okay.
So I hope our brothers from left and sisters from left will wake up to the reality that human beings, whether they are Jews or Muslims, we should respect their lives and not only play to the vote bank consideration. And that's one unfortunate thing happening in Kerala.
Okay. Mithun Vijay Kumar, the problem is not for people to come out and protest for the cause of the Palestinians. The problem is when under the garb of these protests and rallies, they are perpetuating the Islamist Muslim agenda, which has been the sore point when it comes to a number of these Islamist terrorist organizations that have been spreading hate, and not just hate and extremism and radicalism, but also terrorism, whether it is in Kerala or in Bangalore, in Karnataka, or for that matter in Jammu and Kashmir.
Yeah, definitely, Megha. Although, these demonstrations may appear that it has more to do with the Israel-Hamas issue, the Israel-Hamas conflict. But in reality, these are solitary moments that are, targeted to exploit the current situation in India. and to advance a radical Islamic agenda under the garb of this entire solidarity movement. So they may be calling it pro-Palestine protest, but it's a pro-Hamas protest with the agenda to support radical Islamist groups across the nation. And recently PFI was banned, and given their nature, they always re-emerge in some or the other name. So we have to look at this solidarity movement from all the angles. Especially the organizers have strategically chosen certain cities to influence the Indian political landscape in the name of this Palestine solidarity. So their true motive has to be questioned, and the true motive behind this movement must be investigated, because one, they refuse to accept Hamas as a terrorist organization. Second, there are orchestrated effort to influence public, which means they have a strong communication network itself. And the moment, I believe, was supposed to have a communal prayer as well on 14th, I believe it was today. So we must question the motives of such movements that seek to, manipulate public sentiment. And like Savio said earlier, the narrative that Muslims are suffering in India is being pushed across the vulnerable youth of this country, and that's part of a larger Islamic radicalization movement. So there are various organizations coming in support of that, especially leftists acting as a catalyst, and that's the reason Kerala is becoming the hub for all these activities.
Yeah.
Megha.
Savio, again coming to you, this is not just a problem, a menace that is peculiar to India. Something similar is being witnessed in US and UK and other European countries. There were these stabbing incidents that were reported in France against Jews. There have been these pro-Hamas rallies, pro-Palestinian rallies that have taken place, violence that has been perpetuated on the streets. So here a clarion call being given by the Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Toiba and Al-Qaeda and Hamas and Hezbollah to carry forward the cause of the Islamist terrorism. They've just gotten an excuse for carrying forward their Islamist radical agenda.
Megha, you're absolutely right. What is important to understand is that the evolution of Islamic radicalism is Islamic terrorism. What you saw on October 7th was a phase of Islamic terrorism that happened with innocent Israeli civilians. India too has witnessed Islamic terror acts, not once, but a couple of times. Islamic radicalism is a threat to the entire world. Islamic radicalism does not reflect the true nature of a Muslim that exists in India or in other parts of the world. You do have Islamic nations like Saudi Arabia, like UAE, like Bahrain, who have done extremely well without Islamic radicalism. And when you compare Arab nations that have allowed for Islamic radicalism to progress in their country, you will realize that the economic stand of those Arab nations is next to nothing when compared to other Islamic nations that have not allowed for Islamic radicalism to progress in their countries. So India too has been extremely secular in its approach. The Indian Muslim is very clear in his objective as far as nation building is concerned, as far as commitment to the nation is concerned. But certain outfits, such as the PFI, which is banned, or any other radical Muslim organization or radical Islamic organization, continues to attempt to divert or to sort of corrupt the mind of the Indian Muslim towards the secular fabric of India by continuously propagating that the Muslim is in danger if he is not a part of any radical Islamic organization. Mm-hmm. And therefore, you see in Kerala, that's exactly what is happening, where young Muslims who can otherwise be wonderful nation builders tend to opt for radical Islam because of the fear that is spread. You saw something similar happening in Kashmir in 1990, where the Muslims, radical Muslims, went after the Kashmiri Hindus, and therefore they had to come in exile from there. They had to move away from it. The same thing has the potential of happening in Kerala in the years ahead. The radicalism of Islam is actually a curse on this world. Today, religions are living peacefully together. There is just one religion. In this case, the interpretation of that religion, which is radical Islamism, that is actually involved for so many terror activities around the world. And that is a sad aspect, because the Indian Muslim or the Muslim is generally somebody working and looking for a better life for his family and to be with society. But radical Islamists are destroying the very future of Muslims in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And therefore Islamophobia that is rampant, a handiwork of what the radicalist Islamist agenda is, thereby causing grief, causing problems, attacks on the Muslim minorities across the globe. I'm going to come back to you, Gautam, and if we take a look at this global scenario and the very volatility with which the world at this point in time is grappling in the war that is taking place in the Middle East, and I think no part of the world has been left untouched with what is happening in the course of the days and weeks with the attack on Israel and then subsequently the onslaught on Hamas terrorists by the Israeli Defense Forces. The situation is so tense and so sensitive, and the propaganda is so malicious that there is now, we are getting to know in terms of the reports that there are these toolkits that are being created. So if there is a pro-Palestinian rally that is taking place in several parts of India, something similar is actually taking place in Netherlands and in Sweden parallelly on the very same day. So that's how deeply entrenched is this Islamist toolkit, Islamist propaganda to unite together in a bid to radicalize countries.
Well, Megha, the point is radical Islam is being isolated by moderate Islam at last. This is not 1948, where everybody banded together amongst the Islamic countries and wanted to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Today, they do not. When you have countries like Saudi Arabia, which is the keeper of Makkah, and UAE, which is the second biggest country in the Gulf, and Egypt, which is one of the most populous and cultured Islamic countries with over 500 mosques, many of them ancient in Cairo, all saying that we are going to keep our good relations with Israel. We are not going to do all these retrogressive steps. Then what are you left with? You're left with a misguided policy on the part of the Hamas and their supporters. What did Hamas achieve by doing this? It has given the excuse for the Israelis to wipe them off the face of the earth. And this is not working out for any kind of radical Islamic movement. Many of the terrorist organizations have already been decimated. The rest are fighting and falling upon themselves. You've got unknown killers. They popped at least 10 people in Pakistan in recent days. Something is happening that shows, as the defense minister said this morning, Hamas has lost control of Gaza City. Well, I would say Islamic radicalism has lost its way. It does not have a policy. Just making noise on the streets is not going to hack it. And that is that. They can try, but they're not going anywhere.
Okay. Coming back to you, Rahul, then is the situation opposite in Kerala particularly, that if you factionalize, if you use the religion card, if you support Islamist radicalism, you are still going to be able to win the election? Because if you take a look at the way the Kerala government has been operating, there has still no action been taken against the authorities, against these founders and organizers of Jamaat-e-Islami who actually organized and gave platform to the Hamas leader. There's been no action whatsoever. which also is tantamount to what the Kerala government at this point of time feels and thinks about these rallies that are being put in place in Kerala and other places.
There are 2 or 3 submissions. One, Islamist radicalism at the end of the day is more dangerous to Muslim community than other communities. Back in 1979, November 20th, it resulted in Holy Mecca siege, where nearly 500 people were killed. Even the Mecca, the Al-Ikhwan army of the hardline Islamists, laid siege to the Holy Mecca, and at last the Pakistani and French army had to come to liberate Holy Mecca from Islamist radicals. So this can happen anywhere. Any hardliners can be an issue. Second, the way we deal with it. Please let us understand the sensitivities of the Muslim community. Let us hold together the maximum number of moderate Muslims and encourage them to take moderate positions. Alienate the hardliners. Unfortunately, in Kerala, that is not happening. Our government is taking a pro-hardliner kind of an approach, and they are instigating, they are pouring oil to the fire, rather than giving them the confidence that we are all with the Muslim sentiments, we are all with the Palestinian community, but Hamas is not representative of them. Unfortunately, many people are confusing Hamas with it. This is not only happening in Kerala. This has become, there are 2 aspects. One is the vote bank politics, as we know. Second, it is sounding fashionable, sounding progressive. It is happening in great universities like Harvard or Oxford, where youngsters, without knowing the in-depth nuances of it, go to the anti-Semitic or the anti-Jew kind of attitude, and they don't even blame Hamas for killing 1,400 Jews or Israelis. Israelis. You might have seen the Harvard student statement where they one-sided blame Israel for the entire thing. That is not a right approach. When you can never get to a solution of this. See, this is the one-sided, blind, fashionable, intellectual left, so-called snowflake, liberal left attitude, which will never reach any meaningful solution, but only will instigate our Muslim brothers and sisters more. Rather, we should be telling them honestly, we stand with you in your sentiments. At the same point of time, such a kind of violence can never lead to anywhere. Israelis will strike back in a much more deeper way. Then, like Elon Musk rightly asked the Israelis, how many more Hamas are you going to create? Because any person killed, their family members will again go. So it's a cycle of violence. It's a cycle of violence. What we call in Hindu mythology some kind of a Rakta Bija. One drop of blood will give birth to another round of asuras or other round of violence. So you have to find the sensitive balance, and I hope India can emerge as a statesmanly attitude, because India has great leverage with Iran. India has great leverage with Palestine. Modi ji won the highest civilian honor of Palestine. We have great leverage. Our close friends are Israelis. So we have to find a balancing middle ground, hopes and prayers for that. But in Kerala, we have to deal with it politically, culturally, and media-wise, and we have to tell our left-wing friends that what you are doing is wrong. At the end, on the long run, it is more damaging to the Muslim community and the pluralistic framework of Kerala if you are having a totally one-sided approach.
Okay, quickly then, Mithun, why is it that every single time that Islamist terrorist organization has been clamped down, there is a crackdown on it, somewhere down the line it is Hindu versus Muslim, somewhere down the line the narrative turns out to be that Muslims are under attack, Muslims are living under fear?
Megha, there are certain groups actively working in India which target, vulnerable Muslim youth or vulnerable Muslim group, and propose the idea that Muslims are not safe in this country. And that has been there for a long time. They just need one issue. Israel-Palestine issue is just another issue to propagate that ideology. So if the real problem is Israel-Palestine, then India has always advocated for a balanced and realistic approach to the issue. So we don't need any pro-Israel or pro-Palestinian rallies here, unless it is for appeasement of any particular community with some political objectives. But what happens with such when such appeasement happens is that the extremists start growing on the side, and that's the reason you see the left-ruled states of Kerala have more of these pro-Islamic rallies being carried out. We had this PFI rally that made children raise hate slogans. So we must understand that the political landscape of the South is kind of conducive to the growth of these radical elements. But as a nation, we must stay united against any force that seeks to sow discord or advance a hidden agenda, be it internal or external.
Okay. All right. Also keeping in mind that Kerala under Pinarayi Vijayan has been electing CPIM time and again, despite these communal discords that are being sowed by these political parties. Why is that happening? Of course, there has to be dissection of all these points that need to be made. Ultimately, is the Kerala population convinced that a government that plays vote bank politics, that divides Hindu and Muslims, that plays the fear psychosis card against Hindus is the government, is a governing body that they would like to be governed with.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.